David Baxter, Global.
Good morning. I was just wondering, does Canada have an idea of how many Canadians are in Gaza specifically, and are there efforts to get them out?
So this was the question I was just answering in French, but two things. We have around 500 people that have registered with Global Affairs Canada, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. So I don't have the information directly right now regarding Gaza per se. What I can tell you also is that should the United Nations work on an evacuation, we would be working with them. We've done so in the past, but at this point there has been no information coming from the UN regarding evacuation as we speak. But we keep our options open. And as for the West Bank per se, we are looking at options through Jordan. I've been in contact with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Jordan, and once Canadians would be in Jordan, then they would have access to commercial flights, and I've been in contact with commercial airlines as well to be able to do that.
Right, and yeah, this question may be better suited for General Air. What can you tell us about the timing of these flights? Of course, the attacks happened Saturday morning. People quickly went into hiding. It's Wednesday now. We're hearing that these flights should be arriving by the end of the week. So what can you tell us about that timeline from Saturday to potentially Friday before we're seeing flights taking Canadians out?
And Wayne can answer, but I knew you would be asking that question because this is a question that is we are in a situation right now where usually when there are still commercial flights, we don't do assisted departure. This is quite rare. We have the experience even in Sudan where we all worked together 6 months ago to evacuate Canadians, but there were no commercial flights left. But as people were seeing their flights going to Canada canceled or indefinitely delayed, we had to step up and take a decision to do so. And that's why we decided to work with the Canadian Armed Forces and also with Air Canada. But also, I think it's important that Canadians know that when they're in parts of the world where conflict happens, well, we're there to help. But I think that Wayne can provide more information based on his context.
That's exactly it. So Ben Gurion Airport is still open for commercial traffic. We got the formal request yesterday, but once this conflict started, we immediately started planning, developing options, taking a look at the possibilities of what support we could provide. So there's been a tremendous amount of concurrent activity ongoing as this situation has unfolded.
I would just add also, it became clear over a number of days that Canadians needed our assistance getting out. So we were having increased calls to our emergency watch and response center, and it was clear that commercial flights were getting harder and harder to access. Thanks.
Ryan, National Post.
Hi, Ryan.
Morning. I just wanted to follow up on that. You say that we don't typically do this when a commercial airport is up and running. There are flights leaving for Athens from Ben Gurion later this hour. I'm wondering what about this situation is different that you feel compelled? Like, what are you hearing from people about their ability to get flights, not just to Canada, but to elsewhere that could get them to Canada like this?
Well, because there were so many cancellations and also flights that were just indefinitely delayed and people were not getting a real answer whether they would be rebooked, it created a big backlog. And so that's the issue. And options were becoming much more limited. And so that's why we decided to act. But it is a very exceptional circumstance because usually, like I just mentioned, this is something that Canada has rarely done.
Do you have an estimate of how many flights you'll be running? How long you'll be running these flights? How many people you expect to bring out with the Canadian military? And I also wonder, General Air, maybe you could speak to this. What the Canadian military isn't exactly awash with extra resources. What are you canceling to be able to do these flights?
So both great questions. So firstly, we are committing 2 CC-150 Airbuses to this. In fact, the first one will be landing in Athens in the next hour or several hours. And we'll be doing a shuttle between Ben Gurion Airport and Athens. We're doing a tabletop exercise later today with all the partners involved, Global Affairs, IRCC, to work out the most effective and efficient way of doing this to make sure that we've got the flow. That will determine the number of flights that we do per day. It'll be demand driven, how many people are asking to get out. And so those details will evolve over the course of the next few hours. Yeah, there is, to your second question, there is an opportunity cost to this, but no mission is more important than protecting Canadians here at home or overseas.
You want to add, Judy, to that?
I would just say that we are ramping up our resources in the region through our standing rapid deployment team. So we are sending folks from Europe who are at our missions in Europe into Tel Aviv and into Athens to support this operation. Thanks.
And if I can add to that, I had many conversations with the CEO of Air Canada yesterday, along with my colleague Pablo Rodriguez. And so that's why, since Air Canada has a hub in Athens, that's why we will be running through Athens this operation.
Marika Walsh, Globe and Mail.
Good morning. Thanks for
Hi,
taking our
Marika.
questions.
Hi.
Just on two things that you've already talked about. First of all, we're hearing from Canadians that haven't been getting anything other than auto responses from the federal government, that had their phones ring off the hook at the embassy all weekend with no response. And were given auto replies from the federal government with suggestions such as don't travel to Israel when they're already there. So why was the response so sort of scattered and patchwork maybe if others were getting through? And what's your message to Canadians who decide to stay in Israel beyond this week? Is this sort of the only chance they're getting for a Canadian government flight? Mm-hmm. Or is more available later if they decide to get out later on?
Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, we will act and take decisions based on the number of Canadians that have registered. So that's why I've been giving the phone number so many times, because this will have an impact on how many flights will be available. But at one point, government flights will be over, and Canadians will have then to take the decisions on what will happen next. So we're offering this option, and we're looking at the option through Jordan as well. But these will be the options that will be available in the next days, and then Canadians take their decision. We don't have an evaluation of how many Canadians usually are in the country, because they're not obliged to register with Global Affairs Canada. It is a voluntary system. So that's why when people are registered, then they get information from consular services. And they've been able to have access to information since the weekend from the moment they've been registered. There has been a surge of asks, of demands, because of the situation that took everybody by surprise on Saturday. And that's why quickly we reacted, and the team in Israel needed support, and that's why the embassy in Egypt, in Jordan, and Lebanon, and also, of course, the office here in Ottawa stepped up and helped. The embassy, contrary to what certain people were saying, was open on Thanksgiving, and it had also some interruption over the weekend based on what was happening on the ground, and that was a similar situation as what the UK embassy did, the German embassy, and also the Swedish embassy did. So we were working along with allies and also looking at where the Canadian embassy is located in Tel Aviv. Now, Merke, I know that people are scared. Nobody knew this would happen. This is one of the worst terrorist attack in Israel's history. So that's why we're presenting options today. And that's why our consular services have been 24/7 at this. So maybe, Julie, you can add to that?
Yeah, I would just add that, so our Emergency Watch and Response Center is staffed 24/7. There have been no delays in terms of calling and answering, getting responses. There has been a surge in the last 24 hours, so people are waiting a couple minutes on hold. But on those calls, we're taking all the information we need in terms of asking people if they require help, if they would like to be considered for an assisted departure. We are also going back to the list of people who have called us right now and asking for additional information if we don't have it, to ensure that we're able to support them. In terms of the message that went out, we did update our travel advice on the weekend and agree that is focused on people to sort of give them information to allow them to make decisions about their own travel. It shifted to a only essential travel to Israel over the weekend, but we also had a lot of information about regional issues that would have been relevant to individuals in Israel as well. So it's a mix. It's for both those traveling to and those who are already there in the country. Thanks.